and welcome back to the Masters of Modern. I am your host, Alex Kessler, here with my co-host, Ben Bateman, and cue the ba-ba-ba, ba-ba-ba-ba. It's the Lord of the Rings. That's the Lord of the Rings theme song. We got preview cards for Lord of the Rings. It is Lord of the Rings time. We are in Middle Earth.
Wait, what song was that you were doing? You were doing the
no. It's the It wasn't that song. I was not doing that song. It was the ba. It's the one where like they're going over the hill. Ba. Now you've said that song, and they're like both hanging out of my head.
The songs you're referencing are so much less iconic in my brain. There's also the like voiceover.
Yeah, but I just recorded a TikTok using the audio that I said as the TikTok audio.
Nobody knows the audio you're talking about, Alex. We're all so confused.
I don't know. I'm not a musical person, you know. Da, 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 da. All right, so we're doing so we have two preview cards. Thank you, Wizard of the Coast, for providing free preview cards. We're really excited. We also posted these on our TikTok channels and other places, so make sure to check it out all there. And make sure to share far and wide that you saw the coolest preview cards ever from Lord of the Rings on this set. So Ben, before we get into our preview card, I'm wondering, because we're recording this before we've seen pretty much anything other than the other preview cards. I'm wondering how consistently every card in this set is going to be an iconic moment. Because I feel like we have two massively iconic moments, right? Like these are two like ingrained and moments in my head of Lord of the Rings. And is every card in this set like this, or did we just get lucky? Like, I'm excited to see what the rest of the world looks like.
Yeah, I mean, we have talked about it on the show before. My hype level for like my just love and nostalgia for Lord of the Rings on anything I read and see is off the charts. So like getting to see these was just like, you know, that part of my heart is so full. I think there's enough nostalgia and lore with these stories that I don't know how many cards the set is, and I'm assuming like 250 or less, like 200 or less even maybe.
There are at least 753 variants of cards.
But I mean, like old Magic sets are like 350. Expansions would be like 200 change. So probably it's 2 to 300 is like the safe estimation of what it is. Could be even less, but it's probably 2 to 300. So if I was to just go through really fast with you and be like, hey, let's name titles of how many things in the Lord of the Rings world we can think of. So it's like, okay, well, here's the 30 characters, and here's the 30 moments. And then here's the locations, and then here's the battles, and then here's the weapons. And it's like, we go past 200 really fast. So I feel like
just 30 characters. What a Lord of the Rings noob.
You know what I'm saying? But like
name every person in Gimli's family tree from the beginning of Doran on.
All the sweet dwarves from that movie. I want to open the card, then I open the pack, and it's like Misty Mountain Song. Like, that's what I want.
Feely and Oin and Gloin and Bimber and Bopper.
There's just like so much of it, which is what makes me feel like probably everything is somewhat iconic. Obviously.
Yeah, that's fair. Where would you rate yourself on the Lord of the Rings nerd scale?
Ooh, okay. So let's
and in the comments below, I also want all of our watchers to also rate themselves on the Lord of the Rings nerd scale.
So you've got a comp here. This is an important comp to list because Star Wars is the comp, right? And up until the sequels, being a Star Wars nerd was a different experience. It was like I felt like I was a pretty big Star Wars guy. Like I loved Star Wars, so I would have put myself in the top half, like a 6 out of 10, maybe.
Okay.
Once the sequels happened and stuff, I'm barely a 2, right? I love Star Wars, but I just don't compare. Lord of the Rings has not had quite the same cultural acceptance past those films, those first 3. Obviously, like, the Hobbit movies did what they did, but the new show wasn't beloved in the same way. So, like, really, if you're a diehard, it's either because you read the books or you love the 3 movies. That's like one of 2 things. Nobody I know is like, I became this Tolkien guy because those Hobbit movies were so good. Like, no one feels that way. It's
Sure. The reason you love Lord of the Rings is one of the books, either the original trilogy or the Hobbit book.
And I would argue 90% of people, it's the movies. It's the 3 movies, which means if you have seen them dozens and dozens of times, like I have, I'm not, because I know the folks that are in the top 20%. I'm not there, but I'm slightly below it. Like I'm in the 70th percentile. Like I have seen them all countless times. I can
So
recount the scenes. I can hum the songs. I know. Yeah.
yeah. I think like Lord of the Rings scale, I think a 1 is a fan, right? There's someone who saw the movies and liked them. I think that's like a 1 on the scale. As the Lord of the Rings nerd, right? Like not a person within the world where like all the people that hate Lord of the Rings are on the scale, right? Those are all zeros. So if the 1
Right.
is like I watched the movies when they came out, I liked them. That's a
They were
1.
good. Yeah.
A number 10 is can speak Elvish.
You've got the tattoo right here.
No,
Yeah.
no, no.
Like,
I would say just tattoos. And like I think like you need to speak multiple language in Lord of the Rings and have like tattoos and can like that's a 10. I think like I have
Elven,
a Lord of the
the ring with the Elven is like an 8 for you. That's like,
I
that's
mean,
all it gets you.
I have like an Elven tattoo is like a 7 or an 8. Like I think
Oh,
I think
whoa.
like that's like I would say that when I was in middle school was probably closer to the 7, like would have gotten a tattoo if I would have gotten any tattoo. I think I've
Wow.
fallen closer to the 5, 6 now in the meantime, like partially for what you're saying, right? To be honest, I need constant content release, right? Like
Yeah.
if like for Star Wars, one of the reasons I've been a Star Wars fan, Magic, One Piece, is because that stuff's still coming out. Avatar: The Last Airbender, massive Avatar fan, but there's no new content, or the new content
Right.
is
Right.
very
Right.
limited.
Right.
That's changing, which is awesome. But with Lord of the Rings, like, you know, it's there definitely was like, and then it didn't help that like in the same way for Star Wars didn't help. Like the Hobbits weren't very good. Um the Amazon show was kind of boring. Uh and we kind of stopped watching, and I didn't hear better things from the
Right.
point where I
Right.
stopped
Right.
watching, right? But like it's one of those things I also go back to that I'm like, oh wait, I know a lot of Lord of the Rings stuff. Like that's what like 6 makes sense to me. Like I could name every dwarf in the off the top of my head and sing like some of the songs and memorized every riddle from the riddles in the dark chapters, like levels of nerd, and now I don't remember any of them.
Yeah, yeah. For me, like it's all about iconic moments. My mom read me the books when I was a kid, so I have the memory of The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, like those stories. But it's those movies. It's for me. It's not the books. It's not anything other than what was put on film and like my experience and my memory of those movies. And it's so important to me. So many memories that I have of like my favorite parts of film history and even like cultural things that people that are our age you can make a quick reference to. They'll like I can make a reference to, like Theoden King, and like many people that are our age will just like know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's just so many
Our
things that are incredible.
our age is also really interesting with Lord of the Rings, right? Because we grew up in a world where there were no movies. Like I like have distinct memories of like 7th grade, I was in an improv class, and it was like one of the electives you could take. And the first Lord of the Rings movie had come out.
Yeah,
None of the other ones had come out yet. And I had read the books. I like immediately, as soon as I saw that movie, I had read The Hobbit like a few times, and I loved the cartoon as a kid. And I tried reading the actual Lord of the Rings a few times. I could never get through it because I was like in the 5th grade. And then
yeah,
but the movie put enough fire under me to be able to get through reading the rest of the books. And I knew who Golem Schmeagol was. I was like,
yeah.
this guy is an icon. You guys don't understand. He's the best character in these movies. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna be Schmeagol in this this like improv game we're doing in class. No one immediately mocked. No one knew who it was.
Yeah.
It was like who's Golem from Lord of the Rings, and then literally 6 months later, Andy Serkis is a household name, one of the most iconic characters in film history. Like, just immediately steals the show in The Two Towers, and like it's weird that like we grew up in a world where like we could have you could be a Lord of the Rings person without it being pop culture knowledge, and then it flipped that switch. So to continue hinting at what our preview cards are, we have a land, we have a legendary land, and we have an instant. And we have the legendary land. I'm gonna maybe the powers of editing we have just the title of the card and maybe the artwork. We have the Mines of Moria is our red land.
Oh, little Fellowship of the Ring reference. Gimli takes them into the mines of Moria. It's not a. So what's he say? It's not a something. It's a tomb. What's the line? I can't.
Well, Gimli doesn't say that. It's because
Aragorn who says that.
yeah. Because like Gimli's hyped. He's like, I'm gonna see all my friends.
Yeah.
They're gonna feed me really well. And then they get there and it's like locked, and they're like, speak friend and enter. Belloth, and then like the octopus starts attacking them, or the kraken in the lake, and they get in there, and then the other card, which, speaking of like iconic moments from the movie, like Minezamoria, I was like, oh wait, these are things I recognize. The other one is Friendly Rivalry, which is a reference to Legolas and Gimli keeping score, and the flavor text, which I'm now not jumping, the flavor text is 42 Master Legolas, and it's like Gimli and Legolas fighting in the artwork, which you can see on the
that's Two Towers. That's a Two Towers reference, right? They're up there. Well, in the films at least, right? In the films, I believe it was in Helms Deep.
Yeah.
Two Towers, yeah. Helms Deep, yeah. Yeah, both incredibly iconic moments.
I was a level 7 Lord of the Rings nerd, and Ben was obviously like a 5 who doesn't know the name of Helm's Deep.
I made the correct reference, and you had to like.
You said
don't you shame me on the podcast? No. But like, both are.
Ben,
like,
would you say that this podcast is a friendly rivalry?
Yes.
I pocketed that one.
I mean, there's. I was just saying, there's what you just talked about, them talking about their rivalry, like who's got more in Helm's Deep. So many of the lines in the films, and again, I know there are people that are going to listen to this who, because these cards are direct references to the books, not the films. Most people's frame of reference in popular culture has to do with the movies, which is why You Cannot Pass is different than You Shall Not Pass. We'll get to all that, but I will still say it's like sort of related enough that, you know, moments like that in Helm's Deep can be put on flavor text, and even if you haven't read the books, you'll still kind of know what that's in reference to. Yeah. I do wonder, when you mentioned just a second ago, sort of the different moments and sort of what is iconic and what isn't. You know, for me, there's probably 5 or 6 moments throughout the film trilogy that is like that like stand out emotionally when I watch the movies. I make the Boromir joke a lot, but there are iconic ones, right? Like,
yeah,
I wish the ring had never come to me. It's like one of the famous. That might be that's probably like maybe Gandalf's most famous monologue, right? Where he's like, you know, I wish Frodo says, "I wish the ring had never come to me. I wish none of this had ever happened." And then Gandalf has that line, "So do all who live to see these times." That whole thing that he says. Yeah. And I do wonder, as flavor text or something else, will we get representations of those moments, those iconic cinematic moments, you know, because that's text from the book.
I think we will. I think obviously it depends on does it make sense getting it onto a card, right? Like that's always a challenge, but I think there's a likelihood of getting a lot of those great scenes, and some of it aren't in the movie. If they're only in the movies, then we probably aren't getting them, or you know, like exactly what that looks like. I think there's going to be interesting. Oh, just this is a tangent. Have you heard the theory that, and maybe I can find this TikTok for Rick to put on the screen, but have you heard the theory that well, okay, let's say one of the cards, and I'm going to do this theory first. The theory that Frodo doesn't know Legolas's name.
No.
Okay, so Legolas, I believe, speaks directly to Frodo one time in the entire trilogy, and that is, "You can have my bow."
Oh yeah,
that's literally the only communication that they have directly to each other in all 3 movies. But there's the scene when like Frodo is in the bed.
It's when they get up and he's like,
literally that one. So that scene, he's like in the bed at the very end, and like Gimli shows up, and there's no sound, there's no audio, and you literally see him say Gimli, like you see him say the words, and then it cuts to them and they're hugging, and he's like ho 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 ho, and then it cuts and you see Legolas enter, and he's like smiles without wording anything. And then like that would be fine, but then Aragorn comes in and he distinctly says Aragorn's name. Aragorn, and it's like he doesn't know. Hysterical. He doesn't know. Like it's the face you make when you don't know the name of someone. And you're like, "Hey, that guy, you're still around."
But like the Frodo face of like, yeah, like so happy.
But literally he makes that face, but then because he doesn't know Legolas's name. All right, so friendly rivalry is a red-green instant target creature you control and up to 1 other target legendary creature you control, each deal damage to equal to their power to target creature you don't control. So this is a bite card. Fight obviously is the keyworded mechanic where they do damage to each other. Bites are when you just are directly doing it to another creature. This is 2 of them. This is definitely this is a card meant for limited, right? This is an iconic moment. It's the friendly rivalry between Legolas and Gimli, where during the Battle of Helm's Deep, they're like keeping score of who's killed more things. And I believe it continues through the Battle of Minas Tirith into Return of the King, right? Like when Legolas kills that elephant, right? And Gimli's like, that only counts as 1. Actually, do they keep it score entire? I'm not sure they do it in Helm's Deep. No, they do. They do for sure. But I think the running joke continues between both movies. Yeah.
Yes, I think from a card appraisal perspective, it's indicative to me of, this is an uncommon, I believe, right?
Yes.
It's a solid removal spell. It's up to, right? So do you have to have both creatures in play for this to happen,
so you can target. You have to have one creature and you target it, and then the other creature has to be legendary.
So if you don't have a legendary creature, you can't play the spell.
Correct. No. If you just have a non-legendary, you can play it. So target creature control and up to one other legendary creature. Yeah. So the second creature has to be legendary.
Bite, right? Like it's your standard limited effect. It's your infectious bite, whatever. And if you have a legendary creature, which there will be a lot of in the set because of all the characters, you can, for 2 mana, probably deal 4 to 6 damage quite easily to something, which is really good. It's a very good effect. This is going to be a highly picked limited card. The question is, how powerful are the cards in the set? And to me, it feels like, looking at this and imagining, this feels like a Horizon set. So this is probably a perfectly reasonable, on a scale of 1 to 10, limited pick. This is probably 5, probably exactly average. Probably right in the middle. Maybe a little better, but I feel like I'd be happy to get this card. I'd probably get the 7th pick, maybe 4th if I want to be in those colors. But because it's 2 colors to begin with, and it has a condition of a legendary, it's probably somewhere between 4th and 7th picked on average.
Yeah, I agree with that. That I think sounds right. The thing to me that's interesting about this, which is my interest as far as limited goes, always in gold cards, is it's a signpost card, right? An uncommon gold card is often this is what the red-green limited draft archetype is supposed to be. Yeah. And to me, that's saying legendary creatures, which Wizards has leaned into red-green with white, white Naya colors are the legendary creatures matters colors, right? The Bard class from Forgotten Realms and the legendary standard deck they were building was all based around that. So it's not surprising that this is kind of playing in that world. This, as far as bite cards, is really above rate, right? Normally bite is 4 mana for your 1 creature to bite something else at sorcery speed. An instant bite card that can double your creatures. So it's gonna, as long as you have a legendary creature, it's probably killing anything you're looking at on the other side of the field. Is pretty cool. Great. One thing, something we haven't really talked about yet is this is a Modern Horizons set, right? This is Modern Horizons 3. This is printing directly into Modern. And there were tons of cards like this in Modern Horizons, but I do wish this maybe had something about it that made it more modern applicable. Could this target any target? Would it be too good if this could hit something on that level? Or
if the creature died, draw a card or something, something.
Yeah, something a little bit more at uncommon to make this a little bit more of a feature for the format. Because I think our other card, which we'll talk in a second, is more modern playable. I don't think this one. I'm not going to say that. This absolutely has 0 modern playability to it. And I think even in limited, I would say, as you said, I would expect this to go 8th pick in limited, in the first 8 picks in limited in first pack, and then second pack and third pack a little bit earlier. Just from
I think it's higher than that. I think because of the fact that it's even if the rates on these cards are pushed, it's instant speed. There will probably be some okay fixing, And the fact that it's an instant speed bite effect on its face for 2. Like it's just you could have a 3/3 for 3 that like this probably kills something at instant speed, means that you can look at this card first when you open the pack and you go, maybe this is my first pick. If nothing else in this pack is what I want to take, this is a fine thing to start with because I know this will be better than most things.
Except it's gold, right? Like that's the one issue. And that's why I said pack 1, right? Like I think this is a instant pick for anyone who's already red green, right? Like this is a slam dunk red green card. But if you're not sure you're red green yet, this card is a late pick. And that's like the point I almost want to make, where it's like for the signpost cards, you almost always want them to be a little bit better than that. You want it to be like, oh, this makes me want, like, this doesn't make me want to be in red green legendary creature fight deck, right? This makes me, I'd pick this card every single time if I'm already doing this, but I'm never picking this card to do this, right?
Like the red black 3-drop in March of the Machine that we have right now, that you can sacrifice a creature to like put a counter or draw a card, whatever. That card's really good.
Yeah.
Like, card's very good.
Like,
but if you're not in red black, it's like a struggle. But if you are even close to red black, you're like, this is tempting enough to take this card, right?
This is a card that if I'm in black and red, if I'm in black or red and I get this 5th pick, I'm like, okay, I know that no one else is in black and red in front and behind me, because this card is worth leaning into, but not worth first picking. This isn't even that, right? This is like, oh, just, it's possible there were better red and or green cards in whatever this pack for the, so it's not as signposty as I would like. But I love this moment. I mean, like from a story perspective, awesome.
It's fun to get to play it for sure.
And like, I feel like it was planted because then, people know that we have I would say we have a friendly rivalry amongst.
Oh, you think this is
history.
planted for our? You think this was planted for our podcast? I think it's fair. Fair.
Yeah. That's why we got that's why there were 2. There was the one for me to put on TikTok, the one that we haven't talked about yet, and then the one for the podcast, the uncommon one.
Oh, look at you! Just the flex.
All right. So the next card that we've been allowed to given and excited to present. As we mentioned, Minezamoria. It's a legendary land, both in media. Like, I think, like, if we want to talk about the history of legendary lands in pop culture, this is one of the most legendary ever made. I mean, we're going to see other ones in this set, I assume, and I'm assuming this is one of a cycle, and there's, one for each of the colors, but like,
sure. The Shire, the Mines of Moria, like something.
If I walked up to a person was like the Mines of Moria, they're like, oh yeah, that land's that's a pretty legendary location, right? Like if I'm like Tolaria Academy, they're like, I don't know what that is.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe like the God Tree, they don't know what it is, but it sounds pretty legendary. So the Mines of Moria is a legendary land. It enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a legendary creature, which is a theme of the environment, not just the color combo. And then you tap it to add 1 red, or you may pay 3 in a red to tap it and exile 3 cards from your graveyard to create 2 treasure tokens. So you got to be mining. You got to dig into that graveyard, got your shovel, your hammers, and try and get that mithril.
I think this card's pretty good. There are a couple factors.
I don't know if I said
it's a rare.
Yeah.
So the factors that stand out to me that are interesting are, number 1, the legendary clause. As we all know, Commander is a big deal for anything that references legendary. However, in Modern, like, it does happen. It's not like it's impossible. So it costing 4 to exile 3 to get 2 treasures is a bit of a high cost. Like, it doesn't feel like something you're going to proactively look to do in the early part of a game or in a combo situation. It feels like the kind of thing that you'd have one of these. And in Modern, later in the game, you might use it to create advantage. Because getting artifacts into play, like treasures, are both mana, but also like there's a lot of things that want you to have artifacts. So it's unique in the fact that like your resource of 3 cards in your graveyard, which is common in every single type of Magic that's ever been played, means that like this land that enters tapped late in the game creates a pretty good advantage.
Yeah.
It's just missing, like, every piece of it is missing one thing that makes it like, whoa. But I will say, as somebody who plays like red commander decks, like I have 2 different ones I play a lot. I'm going to buy the crap out of this card. It's going to go into Galazath. It's going to go into Kess. It's going to go into whatever that dumb blue-red card I have, Garrison Starn. Like, this is going to go into all my decks. Like, because the fact that, like, the downside is that it's a tapped red source is all I'm dealing with. But like the flip side is that when I'm like stalled out, or like, all those decks want to be able to do this. So I think this card's pretty good, right? Like,
I think yeah, for decks that like, you know, like a Magna, like Magna decks, or like anything that just like wants treasures for reasons in a commander environment, you just play this, right? It's like it's a free roll, especially in Magda, where it's like she costs, like, the chances that this ever enters the play untapped is low, unless you're like needing more mountains and you're like cutting it close. I think this is pretty safe to play in a lot of decks, and you'll definitely get utility out of this randomly 1 out of every 5 games, regardless if you use it every round. I think, like, in Modern, to your point, like any deck that's like playing Academy Manufacturer, right? Like that type of thing, anything that can, like, I think this, for the treasures that you're making, this is whatever, right? Like the ability to use this to make mana is like not going to be super hot. The ability to create 2 artifact tokens that can be used for mana or be used for other things has a lot more features to it, I think, that are more useful. And the fact that it's an untapped mana source, so it's like a free roll for decks often that are like any type of legendary deck that can play this is like just able to. But yeah, I do think it does, as you said, like, it's just overcosted enough that I'm like a little wary on it in like as a free roll, which is good, right? Like the Kamigawa lands, the channel lands are a mistake, arguably, that they are a free roll in any deck that could ever want to play them. The fact that this is not a free roll and you want it for specific homes means it's a better design that it will also see play. And
do you think? Let me ask you this: if this were blue, so it was a blue tapped source, untapped, the whole same deal, and instead of getting 2 treasures, it was the same effect to draw 1 card, would you think it was better or worse?
Better.
4 mana, exile 3 cards to draw 1 card.
Better.
Explain.
I think having a land that late game draws you cards in the decks that want you late game to draw cards is better than a land that late game makes mana. I think you don't need as much in the late game, right? Like it's what do you need on turn 7 in a deck? I don't need mana. I need things that use all of the mana that I've been playing every turn up to this point to spend it on, is the difference, right? Like,
what if it was that, but only as a sorcery? Still better.
Yeah, still better. I think like sorcery makes it closer.
Yeah,
but not
costs 5 of your lands, right?
What?
Like it costs 5 of your lands at that point.
Yeah. 5 mana to tap out and draw a card. I think that's unplayable. I think this is more playable than that, I would say.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to kind of balance in my head and figure out is, like, I think, as someone who really likes to take advantage of cheap artifacts, like, I do this in every format I play. Like, I aggressively try to look for, like, how can I loop and play cheap artifacts to get effect? I look at this and I go, there's probably a way for me to have this in my deck and be super hyped that it's there. Whereas, like, that card we just talked about, even if it wasn't the sorcery speed one, like, even if it was the regular one that costs 5 mana, like, there's a lot of good Magic cards, man.
Like, I guess I'd say this. I think the first card you said is Modern playable. Like, there are multiple Modern decks that would play a blue untapped, if you control legendary creature source, that late game just will draw you a card every turn for 4 mana and 3 cards out of your graveyard. I think that this card, if it sees play in Modern, is going to be pretty fringe.
Yeah.
I think that the sorcery version is just unplayable in every format. But I think this one, the real question is, why do I need 2 treasures on turn 7, right? Which is the answer to that question isn't you don't, right? The fact that you can use this and then like use it to fix your mana isn't like a totally like irrelevant thing. Or if you wanted to do a reanimator deck and have this in the deck and have it as a alternative option to cast your like Jin Gataxius that in your red black reanimator deck, so that like normally in the late game you can't cast like blue mana spells, but because you have a single treasure producer in your deck, it's like a little bit more feasible. Right, it like does let you splash and then also let you ramps in the Genjin Gataxias. So if you like don't get your reanimator spells off, but you're able to like control the game to not die, you can use this to like ramp into it on turn, because it does bump you from 5 mana to 8
7.
mana.
8, yeah, if you hit a land drop. I mean, my thought is, okay, so here's like my comment on this, because I feel like we'll talk about this, and then there's a whole kind of other separate half of the conversation in this episode that we want to have about a different topic. But like, what I will say is that my experience of having played that Galazath Prismari deck, which is like, that was like my first really favorite EDH deck. The whole premise behind that deck is that, you know, you're taking advantage of like lots of artifacts being in play to play big spells. And obviously Galazath, because it's a commander, you can play with an accelerator on turn 3 every game. Now, in Modern, that's not the case. I don't think it's very realistic that there would be like a Galazath deck that it would exist. However, there's a lot of pieces that play into that deck that make it really powerful that aren't that foreign to a combo-centric engine deck in Modern. Like, look at Academy Manufacturer. You mentioned Academy Manufacturer, right? That card's very good. Like, you make a food, a treasure, or a clue, and it makes all of them. So Strike It Rich all of a sudden is 1 red to get you all of those things. So that's quite good. You have cards like Garop or Aether Grid that are going to win the game on their own if your opponent can't answer. You have cards like Shimmer Dragon and War of Invention that take huge advantage of the fact that you have a lot of artifacts that are very hard to answer.
I mean, if you have a way to mill 3 cards a turn, right, from your deck, and you have Academy Manufacturer, this, and Time Sieve out, you win.
Time Sieve is what takes what I'm describing as like a high value deck to like a here's my win con.
Mm-hmm.
My point sort of in saying what I'm saying is, when you start to combine the redundancy of all these effects, I don't know how irrelevant a card like this actually becomes if what your game plan is, I need critical mass of artifacts. I need critical mass of ways to create artifacts. And this is a land. Like, I play this tapped on turn 1, and now on turn 5, when I've countered and answered my opponent, all of a sudden I can just start going ham, right? I don't need a card in my hand. I can start like really building towards what is the end game of this deck. That's pretty good. I don't look at this card and go like, this is a tier 1 staple. What I do is I look at this card and I go, I'm not going to be surprised if this card is really quite good in a few years.
Yeah,
this is the thing that everyone's playing as a one of.
I think this is like a role play, right? This is going to randomly show up in a few decks every once in a while, and you're gonna be like, oh yeah, Minezamoria is in Modern. That card's sick here. You're taking advantage of it this way? That's cool, right? Like, I think there's gonna be like different ways this card is relevant. I don't get me wrong, and you know, like already even just like there's a Asmore Academy Manufacturer Minezamoria Madness food deck that takes advantage of the fact that Asmore is a legendary creature that costs 1 mana as long as you have a discard effect, right? And so like, and you play Ragavan in that deck, and now you got like a cool like thing that's doing stuff, and just the deck does function in a cool way.
How many cards can you think of in Modern? So you've got how many cards can you think of in Modern that, like, for a fairly low cost, can make multiple treasures? Like that, like you can just like fill the board.
Yeah.
Right. Like you've definitely, Tracker is probably the one that comes to mind. That's the most. That's clues, not treasures, but like,
well,
that comes to mind.
There's the landfall, make a treasure or a food. I'm not remembering it from Modern Horizons.
Yeah. Provision, or the 3-drop. So like both of those are like that. That's that category of like 3-drop creature.
Yeah.
Ragavan has like great ability there. There are definitely things that do it, but in terms of a thing where like mid game you can just start to, okay, I'm not doing a whole lot and I'm going to fill the board. That's not a very common effect. 2 versus 1 is the difference. Making 2 is a big deal. Like with Manufacturer, you're making 6 artifacts off 1 activation. You know, that's not a small feat.
Yeah, no, I think like, I agree with you. I think this is a card I would never be surprised seeing play in Modern, but I would not expect it. This, like, if I were to go to a modern tournament, I'm not expecting to play against this. But if I saw it in my opponent's deck, or I tried making it work in my deck, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
It's neither expected nor surprising. It's a wizard. It shows up exactly when it means to. I will say, I think Minezamoria might be the most iconic set piece of the Fellowship of the Ring to me.
Of the first movie? First book?
Like all the Shire stuff, and then it gets into Rivendell and like the pony, prancing pony, like all that's whatever. Like Boromir, I know you love all of the like Boromir's death scene, like all of his.
That's not like a set piece, though. I think if you're going to go with a set piece, I think the Shire as a location is more iconic, but it doesn't have a moment as big. I think that Rivendell is bigger because of the forming of the Fellowship. I'd say that Rivendell, because of that moment, you have my sword, my axe, my bow,
like fly you fools, speak French, like from like
oh true,
right,
yeah,
the Balrog fight is in this, right? The like fool of a took, the like speak friend and enter moment, like literally from speak friend and enter to fly you fools is such an epic 20 minutes.
When they get out of the Minezamoria and they get out like onto the rocks there, one thing Drew and I have always talked about that makes us laugh is like Vigo has this very nasal delivery of a lot of his lines. I mean, obviously he's incredible and it's such an iconic performance, but he's like, Boromir, get them up. By this evening, these hills will be swarming with orcs. Like, there's like, right? Like, it's just like so funny. And then, like, but also then Boromir's response to him, he's like, give them a moment for pity's sake, which is like also my favorite. Like, that whole entire in the mines to the out of the mines sequence is just unbelievable. So I don't know. You're probably correct. Like
it is the Helms Deep battle of that movie, right? Because there's not like then they go to like the elves, and it's like, you know, there's like multiple like we're hanging out with elves and they're like kind of judging us, but they're like, please save us, but also we're better than you. And then there's like the Orokai fight at the end, which is cool, but like also the ending of Fellowship is maybe my least favorite part of the movie.
That's why. How? You're crazy.
Not the fight scene with Boromir, but like its ending feels stalted. Of the three movies, its ending feels the most like, oh wait, the movie's done? I thought we had more movie. Like this is the beginning, right? Like, like
because they get in the boat, and it's just over.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, they're like, where are we going, Mr. Frodo? On an adventure. And like it like shows like shadowy lands in front of them, and like
it's so weird because that's how did you watch the Denis Villeneuve Dune last year?
No, I haven't seen it yet. Which don't tell. I have a friend, Matt Karen, who's obsessed with that movie.
It's really quite good. I mean, it's a good movie, but the ending feels just the vibe of the ending is so super similar. It feels kind of like it leaves you with the exact same feeling, which I thought about a lot afterwards, being like, I wonder if the second chapter of this is going to be amazing because like I have that same feeling of like I'm on this incredible adventure and I just like, what the hell happens next? You guys, this movie just ended this way? Like,
have you read the book?
No.
Okay. I read Dune, but a long time ago, like around when I first read Lord of the Rings. It was like, you finished Lord of the Rings. What are you supposed to read next? Dune. And I do have a friend who's like obsessed with the show, or the books and the universe. And literally he has like every card from the trading card game. And
is it Lee or
what? Yeah, there's a Dune trading card game.
Yeah.
And he has all of the cards. But my plan is to probably watch the first movie right before the second movie comes out, so I don't have to wait for the whole thing. I can get my nice little all at once 17-hour long.
It's pretty cool. I mean, I hope the second movie is really good because the first one is like very good, but also like not memorable. No one really talks about it at all. It didn't have like the impact that I think they wanted to have.
Back to Magic. With this, the Minezamoria and the Shire, which we've also already got in Legendary Land, the Shire enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a legendary creature. You may tap it and add a green you may tap it to add a green, or you may one green and tap it and then tap an untapped creature you control to create a food token. So Mount Doom we also have, but it's a red green land. It follows a totally different. It functions.
Oh, so it's like not in the cycle? Because I remember the preview of that, but now when we were talking, I thought it was maybe black or something.
No,
But
yeah. So
okay,
Mount Doom is a legendary land that pay 1 life, tap it to add black or red, or you can 1 black red, tap it, have it deal 1 damage to each opponent, or you can pay 5 black
right.
red to sacrifice it in a legendary artifact, choose up to 2 creatures, then destroy the rest, activate, and so it's a board wipe.
Got it.
And that's a mythic. So it feels like we're going to get 5 of these as a cycle. Now we don't know that for sure, and literally as we're speculating about this, other people and friends might have already previewed cards that are the other ones.
I feel like Mount Doom is not part of the cycle because it's a mythic. So I feel like Shire being green and this being red. I feel like black, blue, and white feel likely. I think I wouldn't be surprised that Mount Doom is a separate deal.
No, yeah. I think it is totally one. I think the blue one's probably Rivendell, mostly because I don't know any other water themed location in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, there's not like a water tribe. Like water is not like big thing. So if they were going to use blue, because Minas Tirith is probably white, right?
Because you we have the basic lands, and so for instance, the island, the basic land map of the island is like the Bay of Balthalos, which is like
sure
the where like the river Anduin ends and the mouth of the Anduin. Like it's not a location you would recognize. Versus Rivendell is like a water area, right? It's like each of the 3 elf tribes are like different, and it's like more watery. It could also be the waterfall they like that Boromir gets launched off of with the 2 big statue guys.
I feel like okay, so if green is the Shire and if red is Minezamoria, I think Rivendell for blue, that makes sense to me. Like there's water adjacent.
Mm-hmm.
I think that seems reasonable. I feel like white's probably Minas Tirith then. Yep. It's such a hugely, and it's like marble and white. The only because
the black could be that swamp with all the dead people under the water, and then there's like the lanterns that trick you into looking at them and they grab you.
It could be, yeah. I mean, obviously the like Lake of the Dead or whatever.
Yeah.
I actually think where it will probably be though is Isengard. That makes more sense to me.
Yeah. Like there's a lot of good swamp locations, right? Isengard, that Shelob's Lair also could be the place it goes.
Yeah.
It's interesting because like red also had like I think like almost the 3 that they chose are like, or the Shire and the Minezamoria are like pretty obvious. And those I think are a lot. I could also see the legendary land, like the Mount Doom, being a different cycle.
Sure. Okay. Sure.
Like a mythic land, like 5 dual lands that are all like Minas Tirith, Mount Doom, Isengard.
It's a little overkill to me. I feel like.
Well, they just need to make it valuable for modern, right? Like that's like part of the interesting thing about this set is like where's the value going to be? Though I think like Lord of the Rings itself on its own is going to provide a lot of that.
Yeah, I think yeah, like thinking about those different, the different locations or whatever. I do think that like Saruman and his evil is such a big important piece. And also like the way that location matters so much. Like Gandalf goes to him, and then like the Ents destroy it, and the battle happens there. And there's like the whole entire like story piece of like the orcs being created, right? Like the Uruk-hai being created, like the spear and the axe and the time of the oak, like that, all that stuff. So I'd be very surprised if they didn't take advantage of how kind of evil and iconic that feels. Will there be a card called A Mind of Metal and Wheels? Is that what that's called? He says that.
I don't know. I can tell you some. So I think we're probably wrapping up soon, but I know that we have a few things. We know the names of cards. We know there's Birthday Escape, Breaking of the Fellowship, Fear, Fire, and Foes, Grond the Great Breaker, Horses of the Bruinen, Lembus, One Ring to Rule Them All, Oliphant, Second Breakfast, and There and Back Again are the names of cards that that Mario gave us. That's all I know. You've now hit
the line I'm talking about is that Treebeard says about Saruman, he has a mind of metal and wheels, which has always been one of my favorites.
Yep.
There was a band I grew up in high school called Gatsby's American Dream that had a song called A Mind of Metal and Wheels that I always thought was dope. And A Mind of Metal and Wheels feels to me like that would be the name of a card. I'd be surprised at this point if they didn't do something like that.
Yeah, we have legendary creature types. We have legendary creature Avatar Demon. We have legendary creature Bird Noble, which I'm assuming is one of the Eagles. Legendary creature Halfling Knight. Legendary creature Halfling Soldier. We got a legendary horse, Shadowfax.
Oh, snap.
We got legendary creature Kraken, which I'm assuming is at the gates of Moria. We have a legendary creature Nymph, which I don't know what that is.
Nymph.
Is there a legendary Nymph?
Yeah. I don't know if I can like.
Oh, it might be. It might be like Tom Bombadil, which is a deep cut, which they're in this. I believe does have like a Nymph assistant. He has like a caretaker tree lady that's like helping take care of him, and he's like already in the set. What?
You're talking books and stuff.
Oh, like yeah. We have a Spirit Noble legendary creature, which I'm assuming is going to be like one of the kings that, what's his face finds, and Spider Demon, which we got Shield, Shelob.
Yeah.
And then
we get the Nazgul? I feel like we haven't previewed anything to do with the 9 men, right?
Oh no, we'll get it. I mean, we have the rings. We have the 900 rings, right? The serialized soul rings that are 900 of them.
No. I mean, I'm saying the Nazgul, the ring wraiths. So there's 9 of them.
There's a wraith. We got a wraith noble. The last legendary creature type line that we got was a wraith noble.
Okay,
so I'm assuming the Witch King is going to be, or whatever, the head of them all.
King of
yeah. But yeah, so that's those are our preview cards. Once again, thank you, Wizards of the Coast, so much. If this is the first time listening to the podcast and you like what we do, make sure to hit that follow button and that subscribe button, because it's really, really helpful. Make sure also to follow the MMcast TikTok account. There's an official one. Ben's been making a bunch of really cool content exclusively to there. And then also follow me personally on TikTok at Kess Wiley. I do a lot of Magic content there as well. You can follow both of us on Twitter. This podcast is sponsored by TCG Player. If you are going to buy Magic cards and you want to buy them from the best place, like previewing some of the cards we talked about today, go to TCG Player, affiliate link in the description of this episode. It's extraordinarily helpful. It helps us out a lot if you can do that. And then also make sure to check out our Patreon. Our episodes normally, when they don't have a preview card, release a hour early. And you are not an hour early, sorry, almost a week early. And you get a full extra 15 minutes of bonus content at the beginning of every episode. Today, we talked about Legend of Zelda. We talked about a little bit of One Piece. We talked a lot about the different shows that Ben's watching and trying to convince him to play, get a Nintendo Switch so he can play Tears of the Kingdom. Ben, anything else to shout out?
Below? Yeah, comment on this video below and let Alex know he should give me his Switch. If he really believes in his friend, it's his responsibility, and that's all. That is all. So thank you.
All right, thanks everyone, and we'll talk to all of you. Not next week because we're on. We're doing twice a month now, so next week is a break, but the week after that, and we'll talk to everyone then.
Bye, guys.
This has been a production of Time Traveler Media, sending podcasts into the future.